Hi guys, I'm James McIntosh and today I'm joined with Mark Summerhill, really just to chat about all things Gosport Borough really that's happened across the summer. So looking at new signings who've come into the club, looking at some outgoings, it's just going to be a little bit of looking at everything in this interview. Mark, we were chatting a little bit beforehand, but I remember last time we chatted actually, you said you were looking forward to your break, but I can't imagine you would have had much of a break this summer.
No, it's been like I luckily managed to get away on the Saturday after the football season finished, which was really nice after a long tough season. But got back to it. Obviously did a few bits and pieces before I went, and then obviously did a few bits while I was away, as we all have to. And then we've been in the club at least one night every week since it's finished. And to be honest, it's a 5, 6, sort of 7 night a week job anyway this time of the season. So it's and we're back on Saturday. So yeah, I mean I've managed to get away, but it doesn't really feel like I've had a break. But I don't expect the world's smallest violin for that. That's what we sign up for.
Well, exactly. And I mean, it's definitely exciting for all the Gosport fans. They get to record the rewards of it. But before we look on at everything that's happened in the summer, let's take a look back at last season because we didn't really have too much time to reflect on the whole of last season. But looking back, I think it was a very turbulent season to say the least. So what would you say your opinions were on it looking back now?
I think it was a season of probably some really high highs and some really low lows and some other bits thrown in. I think everything could possibly happen during a football season happened. Some amazing FA Cup memories from how far we got. Some incredible FA Trophy memories from the game against Worthing probably has to be the highlight, and then obviously the Torquay draw. We all know how that ended. We probably don't need to dwell on that really. And then obviously, we lost. We didn't finish the season with the 2 managers that we started with. And that I think probably at a time around the Christmas period was probably really unsettling for everyone really. And I think we underestimated that change. Having said that, that last period and something me and Dutch talk about a lot because obviously we were doing it together for a long time before Daisy came in. Is even when things weren't going so well, we still played some really really good football, and we still created some really really good chances, and actually scattered amongst some pretty poor performances was some really good results. So, away at Dorchester and others, and to finish with some of the home performances like we did, like we finished away at Gloucester, and we had a really good game at home against Havant there at the end, where we were done by probably some refereeing decisions, and I guess that probably summed up the season really.
I'm glad you mentioned about that last patch of the season. So, like you were saying there, probably we weren't really getting the results that we did want, but we were starting to play some really nice football. I remember that Havant and Waterlooville game, like you alluded to there, playing some great football. Probably looking back, it's a game where we could have probably won. The Gloucester game, I'm pretty sure we came back to draw that game. So once again, that was another good game. But that last patch of the season, looking back, would you say that was really start of this new project taking place, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot, sort of post-match, and whenever we got opportunity to speak to anyone, we just weren't clinical enough, really. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work that out, whether you were a supporter, whether you were a coach, whether you were a player. We created good chances in games. We had good spells in every game, and we were just not clinical enough. And you can dress that up a number of ways, but I think that's something that we were really keen to address and something we had to address. And when you look at some of the guys we brought in to bolster what we've already got, because that's not a criticism of the guys we got, but the guys we had last year and the guys we kept worked their socks off. But there were times when we were literally putting teams out, and what we had was what we had. And it was really, really key to us this year to bring in some attacking and some creative talent to bolster what we've already got.
Also, you mentioned earlier about how last season it saw 3 coaches, being yourself, Dutchy and Liam. Before we move on to our new coach, let's speak about Liam, because so far there hasn't been any announcement about Liam Devitt staying on board. Could you say what's happened with him and whether we might see him back next season?
Yeah, I mean, we brought Liam in at a time when we felt we absolutely needed some experience. Again, there's no two ways about that. Dutch was trying to play and was also trying to manage. I was trying to do my best to do lots of different roles, and we probably, I think it was quite obvious, we lacked some experience, and there was no better person to bring in. I don't really want to talk about Liam's personal situation too much because that's Liam's job to do. But I think if Liam wouldn't mind me saying, he was probably done with football. Fantastic career as a professional and an international, and a coach. And there was nothing more Liam needed to do in the game. But he came back to probably help us. He came back to help German. He came back to help Dutch, and did a fantastic job. But Liam's position is he had a long time away booked after the season, which he obviously wasn't going to cancel because of us. And I think there's probably a conversation still to be had with Liam, but we all parted on it on incredibly good terms. And I'm not saying that we won't see him back in some role, but at the moment Liam's not actively working with us.
Well, let's talk a bit about our new head coach, that being Glenn House, who will be partnering up with you and Danny Hollins. I mean, I spoke to him last week. He sounds absolutely buzzing to be on board. But from your standpoint, Dutchy's standpoint, how big of a signing is this now for the whole club?
I think it's one thing that we had to get right this year was get the structure right, and I think we needed to get to roles that we're all comfortable doing, and we needed someone to but we said we needed some experience when we brought Daisy in. Well, Glenn does exactly that as well. Glenn was a top player in non-league. He's been an absolute top coach. Has managed, has coached, knows the level inside out. Has played at Gosport. Is a competitive guy, and when you sit and spend time with him, it's a joy to be in his company. And he's someone that Dutch knew, someone who Dutch considered to be a good contact. And I think when they sat down and met, Glenn sort of jumped at the chance really. And I think for Glenn and Dutch to lead the coaching as joint head coaches. I think the balance of both of their experience and both of their skill sets, with the likes of myself in the background doing bits and pieces, and we've got some other staff additions that I can talk about in a minute, or we're going to do some announcing Saturday when we're all back in. But I think it was one thing we felt had to be right going into this season was the structure. We can talk about lack of quality, we can talk about lack of goals, we can talk about players. But if the structure's not right off the field and the environment's not right off the field, then it doesn't matter what else you do. So we felt that was absolutely key to address that. And I think bringing Glenn in was absolutely the right thing to do. And I think some of the other staff additions that we've made, I think we've got a really, really good structure. We were in last night for our first full staff meeting about how pre-season and the season's going to look. And it was a fantastically constructive session with some really, really good people with lots of good background from the professional and semi-professional game. So we're really pleased with not just the squad we're putting together on the field, but the squad off the field is really good, really good.
I'm sure you won't mind me saying that in that spell when Pat and Joe did leave, obviously you took charge, Danny Hollins took charge. And I think from a neutral point of view, from someone looking into it, it looked like you both took on a lot of work. And I suppose it meant you guys couldn't really maximise what you were doing beforehand and really get the best out of it because you were doing so many different roles. But by bringing in Glenn House now, I suppose it really allows everyone to really do their bit to the best of their abilities. So if you look at our recruitment this summer, I mean, it's been absolutely outstanding. And I suppose that's probably a big reason by having Glenn on board, you're basically allowed to really, I suppose, get the best out of your role rather than doing bits you're not really too keen on.
Yeah, we're all trying to cover, but it's to run a professional football club is tough. We've all got full-time jobs. We're all doing other stuff. We're all in the club at least 2 nights a week. That's not to mention midweek games, and Saturdays are full days by the time you're out of the house all day. So you need to have people in the right roles to spread the work around. And yeah, we probably cut ourselves a little bit thin at times last year. And that's not to say we didn't enjoy it, because there were some really, really enjoyable moments and with a fantastic group of players. But like I alluded to a minute ago, we had to bring some people in to spread the workload. We've brought Ben Neller in, who's doing some recruitment for us, and he's been really, really fruitful in that. And Ben will be around the group, and he adds more than recruitment, but his main job will be recruitment. But he will also support Glenn and Dutch, like I will. We've brought in Katie in a lead physio role. We've brought in a new strength and conditioning guy, Martin, who people will get to meet Saturday when we're back in, who was at Portsmouth last year in a professional capacity. And there's probably someone I've forgotten, but we've retained most of the other staff. But that staff group's absolutely critical, and it's one thing Pat and Joe always said about this, if you create the right environment, and that's something they were very good at, and I think it's something we have done is create the right environment. We can all get back to doing what we're good at. And then hopefully, if we're all on top of our games, then that will produce the best for Gosport Borough.
Definitely. You mentioned some of that recruitment there. We will look at that a little bit later in the interview. But before we look at our current squad, let's have a little look at some of the departures that have happened this summer. So when I did that post, there were 6 or 7 big names on that departure list that have departed the club. Harry Kavanagh, who's been at Gosport now for a number of years, he's gone to Havant to Louisville. Alfie Stanley to Portchester. Asher Yearwood, he's made the move. I think he's gone to Maidenhead, if I'm right. But that's a lot of big players out the door now.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be a season of rotation. We knew what we wanted to bring in, which I think we've brought in 6 or 7 new ones already, and we're working really hard on 2 or 3 more. So we haven't finished yet, and we've got some loose ends to tie up with some of the other lads that want to keep as well. But unfortunately, if you're going to bring players in, then we needed to address some of the issues we felt with like last season, and we've not made secrets of the fact that we felt some of the lads were travelling too far. That's probably not their fault. Probably a mixture of our fault and their fault. But some of the lads didn't train twice a week because of their commutes, and we're away from the group when the rest of us were in. So, and I think some probably the time was right to move on and try other things. But we were really clear with what we wanted to bring in. We've parted company amicably with all of those that left, which is obviously that's a great trait when you can part on really good terms. And we've wished everyone well at their new clubs. But it's no point just continuing to do the same thing if things aren't right. Then you've got to make changes, and in football probably you can make changes to tactics, you can make changes to shape and whatever else, but it probably comes down to personnel that fit a system. And we felt at times last season we were hampered with different systems because of the group we had, and that's no fault of the group. That's just what we were sort of not left with. That's probably a derogatory term. But we probably made mistakes with some of the players we let go during last season, if we're honest, and we left ourselves short in a couple of areas. But myself and Dutch are big believers that if you don't want to be there and things aren't quite right, then you probably need to go and find somewhere else because you're not going to give it your best. But I think it's a healthy rotation, and I think with what we've already brought in, we are going to be extremely competitive. That's certainly the wish and desire. And like I alluded to, we've got 2 or 3 more we're really close to bringing in as well, which would be really unfair to name because that's just not fair. But unfortunately, we've said goodbye to some people we probably consider friends and some good players. And I genuinely, wish them all well. But what we have done is bring in some really, really good characters with lots of different skill sets, but we have brought in really, really good characters. So I can't wait to see everyone back on Saturday when we're down to the clinic at Bournemouth for some fitness and injury testing.
I think it was really interesting there about how you said about some of the players who might not have wanted to be there. more or less saying, yeah, we don't need those sorts of players. But that's what I found when doing a lot of these interviews with some of the newer players. From where I've done interviews in the past with some of the new signings, they've come over a bit nonchalant when speaking about the club, almost like in some ways they weren't really that interested. However, practically, I'm going to say actually 100% of everyone I've chatted with so far, whether it's one staying on board, whether it's new people coming into the club, they've all been really buzzing about playing for the shirt and just really buzzing to get going into this new season. But is that something you've all, I mean, going into like this recruitment, is that something you, Danny, Glenn, have all been looking for in these players? That real hunger and passion?
It's something we actually spoke about with Daishi actually in quite detail about some of his most successful times in non-league, and I think it was Ebbsfleet when he got them promoted again. And he talked about some of the qualities that those people had, and it wasn't all about ability. Ability is massively important. If you can't play, it's pointless. But we talked about character, and we kept coming back to that word about character, and we kept coming back to all the old sort of, about a bit of heart and a bit of fight and a bit of desire. And we just felt that we needed to bring some good characters into the group. So, and it's we're going into the season really, really excited. It's hard not to be excited. You go into the club at the moment. Like I said, we've been in at least one night. We've met nearly all the players that we've signed there at the club. So I think that's really important. To take them to a club. You see the work that's going on at the moment. It's phenomenal. The board and the chairman are doing a fantastic job off the field, and you can't help but feel that when you go in at the moment. So I think all of the players are genuinely excited to be there. I think when you look at the quality we brought in with the quality we've already got, I think you just can't help but be excited, and I think that naturally runs through players. And like I said, keep talking about a lot is character. When you got good characters, they're excited by a project. It's a new management team. There's some new players. It's going to be a new pitch. There's going to be improvements. Everything's new. And it just feels like with that, what we've got and what we're bringing, that's a fantastic time to be at the football club. Really, really exciting. And and when the players do interviews, you can feel it's running through them. And what's not to be excited about? It's a fantastic opportunity ahead for the players, and fantastic opportunity for all of us, really.
Definitely. Let's look at some of those players who have stayed on board first of all. Before we move on to the new signings, like I said, let's look at some of the players who have re-signed. I'll start with the defence first. So we've seen the likes of Finley Wall-Smith, Joe Morrison, Rory Williams, a leader, Charlie Vasmer, Fans Player of the Season last year. I mean, those are some big names re-signing, and I'm sure probably a lot of those players, if they really wanted to, could probably be playing step.
I mean, I've got no doubt. When you look at the likes of Waz and Rory, they've all been step two and above of step one, and in the football league. But it was one of the areas we felt we were strong, and that's probably why we've maintained, and we brought in Benny Reid, probably one of the best right backs in the league. Just where we've re-signed Harvey Solly as well. We brought in Kaya just to who can play in there as well. But going back to those ones we kept, they're the ones we want to talk about. They are an amazingly strong defensive unit. And we talk about those things: characters, heart, fight. All of those guys that we've kept have got that. Great athletes, good ages, competitive. Defensively, really, really good experienced guys. So when you keep and retain players like that, that's as good as any new signing. You can bring in players with those qualities. We're so lucky back there to have those guys. So obviously the first thing we did is retain those guys, because that was really key to us to make sure they were on board.
Well, I mean, even looking further up the pitch, you get the likes of Dan Wooden, who's a born leader in that sense, Rory Williams, who we alluded to, Bradley Tarbuck, part of that old guard. It was interesting speaking to Glenn actually about all of this, because he said throughout his time of coaching, you sort of need that core squad that's been at the club for a while to really flourish. So I suppose getting those players on board is probably going to encourage other players to get on board with their leadership qualities.
Yeah, like I said, the first thing we did is to, although we're still staying up, we've got a couple of loose ends to tie up with a couple of guys, but it was the first thing we did to retain that core. And yeah, some of the guys you mentioned there, particularly Rory, particularly Woody, who have been at the club for a long time, great servants to the club, probably played at times last year when they shouldn't have done. Probably played at times when they were injured, probably played at times when they were short of training, definitely played when they were ill. And yeah, you can't value enough those qualities and those sort of lads that are willing to do that. So it's a key part in tying those guys down, because you can bring in all the new players if you want, but now, as Glenn alluded to, as you've alluded to there, you need a core that know the club, feel the club, get the club, and are willing to go into the trenches for you week in, week out, which those guys are. So pre-season, it's I think Dutch has described it a few times as like putting a jigsaw together. But you've probably got the bits in two boxes. You've probably got the bits you already got. I mean, you've probably got the bits you're trying to bring in, and then you've got to fit them all together. And that's when you've got good players around, good experienced players around. It's obviously easier to bring newer ones in, and they all probably fit a lot quicker.
Two players who have re-signed, who I'm going to talk about now, Harvey Solly and Charlie Gunson. I mean, in a weird way, it feels like these are two kind of new signings, because I suppose we didn't really see too much of them last season. But once again, two players that really do show a lot of quality on their day.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Gunson, no doubt about it, one of the best players in the league. That probably just summed up mine and Dutch's luck last year. But we're at a point when we're doing it together. We signed a really, really good player, and showed some fantastic signs in games he played. He can, I don't think there's many better passers in the league than Charlie Gunson. And then he goes and aggravates an old injury. Again, probably played when he shouldn't have done, on top of an old injury being aggravated. And then we lose him for the rest of the season, which was heartbreaking. But, we signed him on a deal that's brought him into this season as well, which is fantastic. He's rehabbing well. And we'll look to get, obviously, a lot more out of Charlie Gunson this season. Charlie season, then you marquees as a fantastic signing. And Harvey Solly is a fantastic talent. He plays for England at his age group. He plays at centre half for England schoolboys. He can play at fullback. He can play at wing back. He can play in midfield, and he is someone that displays all those qualities that we've talked about. He's, for a young guy, fantastic character, fantastic heart. I think when the first time we saw him, I think Dutch said to me, "Quality, look at him, he's game." And I think that about sums Harvey up. He is absolutely game, energetic, would run through brick walls for you, and because of that, picked up an injury. And then, with his England pressures as well, probably went and played for England when he shouldn't have done. But, who's going to criticise him for that? And we didn't get a great deal out of him because he was injured. And that, when you look at it, we didn't get a lot out of Gunson. We didn't get a lot out of Harvey Solly. But they both had the summer. The chairman has thankfully backed us and invested in us, and has paid for some pre-season testing, which starts on Saturday at a clinic in Bournemouth, where we're doing some nutritional stuff, some fitness stuff, some injury stuff, some programs. So that's a fantastic investment and those two will particularly will benefit from that.
Well, now let's look at some of the signings who have come through the door. I mean, our first signing, let's be real, it doesn't come much bigger than Rafa Ramos. And I'm not just saying that because he made me look very short in that announcement video, but what a great signing that is, Rafa Ramos.
Yeah, it's great to see Raf back. I spoke to Raf at the end of last season when he left Poole, and we probably felt it just wasn't right to bring him back. He'd had a season plagued by injuries. It didn't work from at Salisbury, it didn't work from at Poole, was injured. Went to Hungerford and scored when, probably we could have, should have signed him. We'll never know. But when we had those conversations, one of the things I said to him was that Raf, but we need to talk at the end of the season. So we were both in no doubt that when the season finished last season, we were going to talk again. He was one of the first people we contacted. It was in credit to Raf. He's no mug, but it was an easy sign in the fact that signing's never easy, by the way. But Raf wanted to come, and you can't help but feel that Rafa and Gosport probably are the perfect fit. And we're really pleased to have Raf back. He just gives you such a different option in the final third, and really pleased to have Raf back. He's great to see him come home and a great addition to our front line. And Rafa's a fan favourite, so I'm pretty sure everyone will be pleased to see him back.
Well, it was actually interesting when I did speak to Rafa when we did do that interview, because at points last season, it just felt like we were missing that natural sort of goal scorer, whereas Rafa really has that flair about him where he's not afraid at all to take his opportunities, and he does get you those goals. So I suppose he's going to bring a lot to that attacking line, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had to pinpoint, Rafa's qualities, he's got many different qualities and plays many different ways. But Rafa's got a knack of scoring goals when you least expect him to. Rafa's just as liable to hit the bus with his first attempt, and then take the back of the net out. Take the back of the net out with his second one from a far worse angle from 25 yards out. I mean, he did it at Tiverton, and not last season, the season before when he was here. He scored 2 away at Tiverton to see us into the playoffs. When he's not even had a half chance, and he just took his chances. And we all remember the net bursting out at Gosport when the way he finished. Personally, and for the club, really pleased. Raf's back, great guy, great character, and like I said a minute ago, just a perfect fit.
Signing number 2 was a young goalkeeper from Bognor Regis, that being Ryan Hall. What really stood out for him that made you say, I want to get him in our goal next season?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's got great pedigree, great background. Another one that's been around Portsmouth and that sort of circuit, been in great clubs. A good goalkeeper, one that we knew about. And it was fortunate, being really honest, fortunate with Bognor being relegated, and we probably knew they weren't going to keep some of that quality. So he was, again, no one's an easy signing, but he was one of our sort of top goalkeeping targets, and we swooped quite quickly, and that's his way of life, unfortunately. Someone gets relegated locally, they're going to shed players. Someone gets promoted locally, they're going to shed players for different reasons. And if you want to have the best players, then you've got to go and get those players. And a great goalkeeper, good with his feet, going to be good with crosses, good shot stopper. We believe for the level he's your all-round package. So we were delighted to get Ryan. Really, really good addition.
Next on the signing list was a player called Benny Reid, who did sign from Sholing. If I'm being honest, I thought this was quite an interesting signing because our right-back position, I mean, I'm not sure for how long you would have known about how we might have needed a right-back, because obviously Harry Kavanagh missed the last month or 2, I think, of the season last year. But anyway, so he was missing games. But what point did you really start looking for a right-back, and when did you know Benny Reid was going to be the right fit for Gosport?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to talk about the Cav situation too much. Cav decided to move on. He was absent for a period there with some health issues, and we were always confident that we were probably going to get Cav back, and we probably just couldn't get him back to where he wanted to be. When you've got someone of Cav's quality, then there's a chance they're going to get back to playing, but you sort of hold on and you wait for that, and we're lucky to have someone like Tarbs. Tarbs again, step 2 and above. Tarbs is just quality. But a victim of his own success, Tarbs can play in the middle of midfield, Tarbs can play wide in midfield, and Tarbs can play at full back or wing back. So we always probably felt we had cover there. We probably always felt it weakened us a little bit though. When we had to play Tarbs in there, so we knew we needed one, but when you're at certain times of year, there's not always you get over Christmas, and there's that sort of people that then start, trying to bring people in from promotion pushes, etc. And sometimes the lads that are available at certain times are just not the sort of lads you're looking for. But we knew about Benny. We knew with 1 or 2 things going on at Sholing that Benny might become available. We knew from his pedigree at Havant, from before, National South days, that we knew what a good player he was. And again, I think Sholing are going hybrid, and some of the lads can't do that, so you've got to be on your toes. And when Benny came available, we went straight after him. And another great character, fantastic right back. right up there with the best right backs in the league. So again, we went out and we got him, and we got him done early. So another really good addition to the squad is Benny.
One new signing who I am interested in speaking about is Michael Fernandez, because I remember the day we had signed him. You said you had been after him for last 2 seasons, I think it was. But when you got him this season, I bet you must have been amazed. But just tell us why you've been scouting him for so long and what you guys really see in him.
Yeah, well, Michael brings a lot to his game. From anyone that's seen him play, I mean, he can beat people for fun. He can play wide. He can play as a 10. He's exciting. He's got pace. He's energetic. He scores goals. He creates goals. He is everything we were looking for. And in my first season, when I came with Pat and Joe, we tried to sign him very quickly. We just lost out on him. He's someone that's always been on our radar. And when you get someone of Michael's ability, who does what he does in the final third, they probably never go off your radar. And again, he was at Swindon last year, another team that were relegated, so opportunities arose. And we went after him, and we made it happen. It took a lot to make it happen. But Michael's one of those lads that when you meet him and you get him in, and we sat upstairs and we looked over what was going on. Another one that was really excited by the project. And sometimes these guys come with a lot of hype and a lot of, what it might be like. But when you sit with Michael, really, really decent guy, just wants to play football. That's all he's interested in, just wants to play football. Very successful business outside of football, by the way. But he's just a lad that wants to play football. And again, we felt from when we met him, on top of what we knew about his ability, that we just had to have him. And the chairman made that possible for us. So, of all the new signings, I'm probably just beating myself really about being a good addition, using that phrase a lot. Michael brings a lot to the squad. We're really excited about that and really pleased.
Well, if that signing wasn't exciting enough, let's look at our next one being Adam Tamaso. I mean, when I saw he had signed, I was a little bit shocked, to be completely honest. Obviously signed from AFC Totten. Definitely a player that could be playing step 2 if he wanted to next season. So how did you get his signature, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, it's like all these things, isn't it? It's about contact and when they come available. He's someone that Glenn knew. He's been with Glenn before, so there was a great relationship there already. When we were first made aware that he wasn't going to be kept at Tottenham, and that's Tottenham's business, by the way, we couldn't believe it. He'd won the league with them. He played a phenomenal amount of games. Been there sort of 1-2 promotions with them. And we were really surprised he wasn't going to get a chance at step 2. So another one that, again, when they become available, you got to go and try and get them. And with that relationship with Glenn's got with him, sort of, it didn't make it easy, but made it easier perhaps than it would have been for him to go somewhere else. So again, Glenn got him in. And what a fantastic signing. Tamaso's stats speak for himself. And he won the league. Won the league. He got promoted to Tottenham for the playoffs last year. And that's definitely one of our aims for the season, is to be looking at the higher echelons of the league. And like I said earlier, off field, they're building a club fit for national south. So we've got to try and match that on the field. And you need people like Adam. Quite as simple as that. He will just win us the ball back all day long, break play up, and a genuinely dogged, really good competitive midfield player with experience in bucket loads.
One new signing who I must say I'm really excited about seeing is Shak, signed from Havant and Waterlooville, but I just feel like he's a player with so much promise, and if given the opportunity now at Gosport Borough, I feel like he could once again be one of the players that could really flourish, and we could really see, the start of a long, really good career now.
Yeah, Kaya, another one. Youngish guy, didn't work at Havant for him last year, didn't get the opportunities he wanted. But been at Southampton for a long time, till he was 18. Went to Eastleigh. They really liked him at Eastleigh. They played him in the first team. Again, I think probably it's about when you've had clubs like Southampton, Eastleigh. Your next club's really important. Where you're gonna settle, where you're gonna get opportunities. And we met Kaya a couple of times. One of the ones we brought into the club. Again, he really brought into the project. And he just instantly sort of felt at home, and perhaps sometime is what it takes. So we have got, I think, like I said a minute ago, when you get down the club at the moment and see what's going on, it's an exciting time, and with new, like I said, new coaches coming in, new players coming in, and Kai can play in a variety of roles. Can play in the middle of midfield, can play at fullback. At 6 boxes on its own. And when you meet the lad, just very, very energetic, positive. Going to be a great lad to have around the place. Big smile, big character, and definitely, I would imagine, all things being even, Kai will be a fan's favourite very, very quickly.
This probably sounds a bit copy and paste, but once again, Trevor Kborn, that's another excellent signing from Winchester. I mean, it's once again a very interesting signing in the fact he can play so many positions up front, he was telling me. Whether that's right wing, he learnt to play striker more last season, and he has probably got the traits where he really can fit all of those different roles. So a player who really can add pretty much everything up front.
Yeah, we spoke about it a bit earlier about what we felt we needed to add this season, and when you add the likes of Michael Fernandez, when you add Trevor, when you add Rafa, when you add one or two others, we're certainly doing what we said we wanted to do and bringing exciting attacking players. Trevor can play wide, Trevor can play through the middle as a 9, gives us great options, and it was one of those ones that when we were talking about players very early on, myself and Dutch, before we had Glenn around, before we had Nels around, Dutch said about playing against Trev, how he just thought he was a really good player, was strong and was quick, and really was right. One of our first targets was right at the top of the list of our targets to fill that area. Took us a long time to get him in. We had to get him out of Winchester, and many thanks to them, by the way, for the way we've managed to secure him. But again, with Trev, he came in to see us, and just an exciting young player, and I think that, like I said, with the likes of Michael, with the likes of Trev, with the likes of Rafa, we've just brought in some really, really exciting front-footed players that can beat people, that can get crosses into the box early, can get into those areas where they can create things and can score goals themselves as well. We were short of goals last year. We went places and we didn't score. We scored one. We were hanging on for points and we were short of goals. And I think we brought in lads, maybe still one or two more to bring in. We brought lads that can create and can score goals, and Trevor certainly fits that bill, certainly.
We've probably named six new signings there, I think it was. You combine that with the players that have already re-signed. I mean, compared to this stage last season, I'm not sure if it's just me, but it feels like we're a lot further ahead than where we were. And looking at other clubs juxtaposing each other, I mean, once again, it just looks like we're really far out there, one of the clubs leading that race. I mean, but personally from you, the other coaches, do you share the same feeling that it just feels like we're quite advanced recruitment-wise where we are?
Yeah, we got our business done early this year. I regularly speak to Dutch about this, when we're having one of those how do you feel it going moments. And I tell him I think we're a long way ahead of where we've been in the last 2 seasons. And that's not being disrespectful to anyone that's been with us before. But I feel we've got our business done early. I think, I keep saying we're probably trying to bring another couple in. But to be going into the first session on Saturday with, I think we've got 20 spots. And I think we've filled those 20 spots with what I call first team regular, starting regulars. The squad feels in tremendous shape. Now that can bring lots of things to you. That can heap a little bit of pressure on yourself, which we're probably used to. But it can also heap some enthusiasm, and like we said, 6 or 7 new ones in with what we've already got. What a fantastic balance. We've not. Dutch and Glenn as will be leading the coaching. You just can't help but feel really, really positive about the season ahead. Let's hope we're doing an interview a month into the season talking about what might have been. But all you can do is what you can do at the stage of the season you're at. And at the moment, we're going into the first session Saturday with a fantastic squad, and like I keep saying, close to probably adding a couple more to it as well. So, really, personally, really, really, really optimistic about the season ahead, about the pre-season period, and you can't help but feel like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right to feel we're in a slightly advanced position with getting our business done early.
Definitely, because also you contrast that from last season. I mean, there were some games last season, league games as well, so quite important ones, where we had three players on the bench, for example, and then you'd have the other team, they'd bring on all five substitutions, and you could once again really see that difference, one team being a lot more fresh than the other. But you said it there, we already have 20 players, a big squad now, but I suppose you're going to create those positive headaches that you'll have where you do really have a much bigger squad depth. Once again, something that's massively improved on from last season.
Yeah, we felt we didn't have great competition at times last season. I think I alluded to it a few times already to say that we felt sometimes we had what we had and they had to play. We probably had a couple of choices to make it to change things. We felt a bit hamstrung at times. That's probably our fault from some of the players we let go and some from our own recruitment. So you can dwell on that or you can ignore that, but what you need to do is learn from it. And I think we've learned from it really, really well. And I think we've made some really, really good signings, not just scattergun signings. We've had key positions we needed. We knew we needed a goalkeeper. We knew we needed some wide players, some creative players, and let's be honest, Dutch is not getting younger in a player coaching role. So people like Tamaso and maybe one more in there that have come in will fill those roles, and targeted recruitment, sensible recruitment has been key. And having Glenn's contacts have been second to none. Dutch's contacts again. I mentioned we brought Ben Nella back in, who some will be aware of from his time at the club previously with Sean and on his own for a spell. Has been massive in the recruitment field as well. So between probably the four of us that have been heading it up, I think we've recruited really well.
Definitely, because like I said, I think our recruitment has been absolutely phenomenal this season. But once again, we're really starting to develop a great squad now going into this season. So really looking at everything now, going into the season, have you set the squad yourself any ambitions of where you would like to finish already?
Well, we haven't met them all together yet, which is what we're going to do Saturday for the first time, where we'll talk about a few bits and pieces. But I think the chairman is quite clear about the ambition of the club. They're building a club now that should be sustainable through income. That's something football clubs aren't locally, and we should be the envy of a few of them. But anything happens to the current money, they're leaving a business behind, not just a football club, and also a community asset, by the way, as well. It's not just a business. A lot of opportunities for people to get out and play football in the stadium, which is fantastic. But I think, like I alluded to earlier, what we're setting up is a club and an infrastructure that is fit for National South football. And I think you can, some clubs at our level will probably talk about Football League and talk about National League, but let's talk about what's achievable. And what is achievable is the next league up, and that's National South. And I think that has to be our target, whether that be through automatic, whether that be through the playoffs, or that's got to be the next natural progression for the club.
Definitely. And then I suppose really it all gets underway in just a little under 2 weeks' time when we do travel to Horndean, get our pre-season underway. Any away games that you're particularly excited for?
Pre-season's been difficult this year without having a pitch to play on. We've been very reliant on other teams hosting us, which we're very grateful for. I think we've got some interesting pre-season fixtures in there. We've got some local ones. We're actually calling the pre-season tour the Danny Holland's pre-season tour this year because he's arranged most of them around West Sussex and within a short hop of Fontwell, where he comes from. But no, I'm looking forward to them all, really. It's why we do it. We like to play games of football. We'll have bigger squads at the earlier ones. We always do, and you can't overload the players. So they'll be getting limited minutes early on, and then we'll build up through the programme till we're getting closer to sort of match day minutes before we start on the 9th. So no, I'm looking forward to all of it. Looking forward to getting started again, really.
Well, Mark, I've got to share the same views. Absolutely buzzing to get underway now. And then I suppose I'll be speaking to you in a month's time with another roundup with everything. But it's finally here, Gosport fans. So make sure you get all your tickets ready for pre-season. And we're almost here. And Mark, I think you know how to end it. We've done it for the last few years now. 3 final words as usual from yourself.
Up the borough.
And final words from me. Up the borough.